Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. We are back for part 2 of working on the larch forest in the middle of winter. Here is a look at the larch forest in the morning sun. Sure looks nice with the sun shining on the trees. So today, my first step, I'm removing all the needles off the trees. There's a lot of needles that were hanging on and clumps of needles that had fallen on the branches. So I'm just going through with the tweezers and cleaning up the trees, and then I'll resume pruning. So I'm just going in with the tweezers and removing all the needles that are still hanging on the branches. Just cleaning it up so when I go to prune it, I can see everything really clearly without all these needles hanging down on the branches and kind of obscuring them. So it was a cold night last night, and the greenhouse went down to freezing in here. And it's warming up now with the sun, but the soil surface is still frozen in this planting, so the trees aren't really warming up much, which is good. It'll keep them dormant for the rest of the winter. And you just got to be careful that you don't disturb any buds on the trees. Just careful picking the needles off. Yeah, that's looking much better. So next, I'm going to clean the needles off the landscape, just to clean it up. Just grab clumps of needles, and because I'll need to clean the base of the trees, get the moss off the trunks, scrub the lichen off it, so it's nice to be able to see the actual landscape and the root base of the trees. Yeah. So I will work away cleaning up the landscape, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. It is later on in the afternoon now. My brother phoned me this morning and asked if I wanted to go visit the bicycle shops with him, so I did. So it took most of the morning and a bit of the afternoon. It was funny, there were a lot of bicycles in those stores, high-end bikes, that cost more than I paid for the Fiat Abarth. It was kind of an eye-opener to the price of high-end bikes. So I've been picking away the needles off the forest floor. I'd say I'm about halfway done, so I'll continue with that this afternoon and see how far I get before the sun begins to set. Here's where I'm at with the forest floor. So I have a lot of the front done. I've got to do all the back still. I do this every year, pick all the needles off the forest floor, and I enjoy doing it. It's just, I don't know, it always means that spring is on the way when I do this clearing of the forest floor. And yeah, I enjoy picking it off, and then you get to see all the nice moss and the trees before they were just all covered up. I've been working away on the landscape, clearing all the needles off, and it's getting there. The light is just starting to go, and I'm not quite done. I still have some cleanup at the back, but it's getting there. It's looking good. Once again, the trees are looking good. So I'm going to keep working until it gets dark, and then we'll come back tomorrow morning and continue working on the forest. It is the next morning now. I'm just out in the greenhouse here waiting for the sun to come up, and I'll begin work on the larch forest. In the greenhouse here, it is right on freezing. And today, it is going to warm up from minus 18 this morning to minus 2 degrees. So that will be really nice. And tomorrow, it should get slightly above freezing for the first time in like a month. Outside, we're starting to get some light in the sky. I'm very excited about working on the larch forest today. I sure look forward to getting up every morning and checking out my trees, watering them, seeing how they're doing. It's a nice way to start the day. Well, it is light out now, but it is so cold in the greenhouse here. You can see the water on top of the bench here is still frozen. So I'm going to wait a while till it warms up a bit in the greenhouse. It's just slightly above freezing now. I think if I wait another hour, it'll be much more pleasant in here to work. Right now it's so cold, my hands are just, it's just too cold to work. I left off yesterday by cleaning all the needles off the landscape, so I finished that task. So now I'm going to go back to pruning, and then the next step will be cleaning all that lichen off the trees. So my first decision on pruning is I have this tree on the edge of the forest here, and it has two opposite branches. And the only reason I've left them on is if I reposition that tree when I repot this planting, I'm not sure which branch I should keep. It all depends on how I rotate the tree. I know one of them has to come off because I don't want this, these two opposite branches. I think it'll be this front one that comes off. I don't think I'm going to change the planting angle too much because it's kind of on the edge of the forest and all the branches are kind of out reaching for the light. I'll show you a close-up of it. So here is a look at that tree, and you can see the two opposite branches there. This branch is the one I would take off because it's quite long and straight without much taper or branching close to the trunk line. It's kind of a long branch. This back one has division and better ramification, so I think I could probably safely take that branch off now. All right, here I go, a big cut coming up, and I think I'll just prune it flush with the trunk line. I don't want, this deadwood sticking out. So here I go, a big cut coming up. I'll just let me prune that stub off here first, like that, and then I'll come in close to the trunk line and prune it off, and then I can clean that cut up. So here I go, a big cut coming up, click, click, and it's done. So there is that branch off. They're very lightweight, these branches. So next I've got to come in and clean up my stub there so it heals nice and flush. So I will come in and I will just nibble that back. And it'll be a bit of a scar on the front of the tree, but it'll heal fairly quickly, I think. I'm going to have to make it a little larger. If I can get in here, just nibble it back. Now, should I go a little more to make it flush here? I think that's good. I think that'll heal over, look quite natural someday. So let's have a look at the forest without that lowest branch now. So I'm just stepping back, having a look. Yeah, I think that's an improvement, getting rid of that opposite branch there. So next I've got to continue pruning up the trees, all the long shoots that have grown in over the summer. I'll rotate the forest around and start on these back branches. You can see this one's really long, and there's a lot of long ones at the back here. So I'll get my shears and begin this work. So I'm using directional pruning, so I prune back to a bud that I want the new branch direction to grow. So on this branch there's a bud facing upwards. I don't want that branch to continue growing upwards. Here there's one sort of growing downwards and one coming out the front, so I'll prune back to that one. And this branch, I've got a bud on the bottom, so I can prune back to that. This one, I've got a pair of buds at the base,
which I think would be good to prune back to. Keeping that branch quite short, and I could probably prune this one back to here. This one, there's a pair of buds at the base. I'll go further back. This one can be pruned to here. Yeah, I don't see any more buds on this branch. I'll just clean up some stubs. This branch can get pruned back to here. So I'm just always looking for buds and pruning back to ones that are facing a good direction. Here you can see at the tip of this branch there's one growing kind of straight up. So I'll prune that back quite hard. This one, there's a pair of buds at the base, so I can prune the tip back. Here, I've got buds at the base, some out here, so I'll just take the tip bud off. This one I can take back a little further. The rest of that branch is looking quite good. I can take this one back a bit. There's a stub here I can clean up. Yeah, I think that one's good for now. This one, there is a bud on the bottom. I will take it back further. This one up here, I've got a pair of buds at the base. I can take the tip off. This one, I can clean a stub up here. I don't know if I want to prune this branch off or back. It's kind of growing from a funny spot. Difficult decision. I have a lot of branches growing from one spot on this branch here. I think I'm going to take off this kind of thick stub here. Take that off, clean that branch up. That looks better. This branch here, there's a stub I can take off. Prune the tip off. This tip can be pruned off. I think that's dead there. Let's prune it back. Stub. Tip. Tip. Tip back. Yeah, so that's improving that. There's a long branch here I can cut back. This one. This tip can come off. This one can be pruned back. Take that off. Take the tip buds off. Put this one back. I've got kind of a long vertical one coming up here. I've got some good buds down here, so I'll take the whole top off that branch. That one could be pruned back. That one could be pruned back. Tip off. There's a vertical one here I can prune back. This one can be pruned back. There's a long one here. I can prune that back. This one could be taken back. I can go right back to here. This one could be taken back. That one. Yeah, so I'll just work away, pruning up the trees. Here's another kind of vertical one. I got some buds here, so I can take it back to at least there. Here's one up here I can take back. This one. I've got a strong shoot coming up here. This is kind of, I've left this branch on. It's kind of, you know, almost a cathedral branch coming up. And I think I'll leave that. It's a cool feature on this tree. The leader is kind of back here, and this one's more of a branch, so I'm going to cut that one back. I don't want two kind of vertical shoots going up. So do I take it right off or keep part of it? I think I'll at least take it back to here. Like that. Here's that big shoot that comes from this tree, goes right across over to here. So I can take that back. I got some good buds back here. So that one can come off. That's one of those shoots that when it's got all its needles on in the summer, you can't really see what's going on. So it just kind of grew unchecked. Stub. This one back. There's another kind of cathedral branch coming up here. That's looking okay. Here's a stub I can take off. Yeah, so this one's a bit of a cathedral branch. It's starting to grow upwards. Now I do have kind of a branch, funny one there I'm going to take off. It's getting in the way of the other branches in the area. This one can be cut back. Take the stub out the center. This one can be cut back. Stub. Tip I can take off here. This one could be taken back. This one I think can be taken back further. Yeah, so it's just a matter of looking at each branch, deciding what you want to do with it, where you want it to grow, cleaning it out so there's no crossing branches, and here's a vertical one here that can get pruned back. I've got a bud at the base, so I can take it off there. This one could be taken back. This one can be taken back. So I'll work away pruning up the trees. Pruning all the obvious long branches back. And then, like I said, I'll do my more detailed pruning once all these buds start turning green and start to emerge. So that'll be after the repotting. I'm just after obvious kind of long branches for now. Not a real detailed pruning yet. That'll come later on. Like here's a branch growing back in towards the tree. Take that one out. I can shorten this one. This one can get shortened too. Back to here. Stubs can be cleaned up. That one can be shortened. Some vertical ones here. I can tip prune them. That one can get pruned back. Here's a long one here. I can prune that one back. Tip off that one. That one can be turned back. Yeah, so I just go around the trees looking for obvious places to prune. I don't know how long I'll be able to work on the trees because it is very cold out here. There's still ice on the top of the benches here. So I'll work until my hands get cold. And then I'll take a break and warm them up in the house. It is quite cold today. So all these branches on these trees have been trained with clip and grow over many years, and I think they're coming along nice. It certainly creates interesting trees. I think every branch is different, and that's what I like. I see a lot of trees that are wired and every branch is the same. It's just the position that's different, and it makes for a very boring looking tree. This tree, you can study each branch and see how each branch differs from each other. They're all a similar style, but they're all unique, and that's what I like. I don't like trees that have, if every branch is wired exactly in a mathematical formula, it makes the tree very boring to look at because every branch is the same. And as I said, it's just the location and the size that's different. It's not the actual branching of the tree that's different. And, once you've seen one branch, you've seen them all on the tree. They're all the same. Whereas this forest, you can really sit down and study the branches and see how each branch is unique and the flow of it and the taper and the ramification. It's all part of the interest of the tree. So that's one of the reasons I like clip and grow, is that the tree has a say. It grows where it wants to grow, and you kind of guide it through pruning. It's not total manipulation with wire and total control of the branches. The tree has some say, and I think it makes it look very natural. I'm not a fan of trees that don't look, don't have a natural look to them. Because as I said, they're usually quite boring looking. This one could come right off here. Yeah, you don't get any surprises with a tree that's fully wired. It's very predictable. And it's not to say you can't make it unpredictable. It's just, I would say, the clip and grow does that. It creates branches where you wouldn't expect them. And, you keep the ones that are really cool looking, prune away the ones that aren't. Like this one. So it's a good balance between natural growth and, the control of the person growing the tree. It's somewhere in between. Okay, so the pruning is going really well. It's improving the trees. My hands are getting very, very cold. So I've got to go in and warm up. It's just too cold out here. It's only 2 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees above freezing. So yeah, I got to warm up. It's getting cold out here. So here's a look at some of the branches on the tree kind of close up, and you can see each branch has its own style. They're all different. They're not predictable. They're not like mathematical branches. They all have their own kind of natural look to them. Twisting, taper, branch location. And it makes a really interesting tree. As I said, they don't look boring. Each tree is unique, has its own style and shape, just like you'd see in nature. And that's what I like, is that, yeah, if you've seen one tree, you've seen them all with most bonsai, and this one, every tree is different. So I'll continue after warming my hands up. I went inside, had some breakfast, warmed up, and it's now 7 degrees Celsius in the greenhouse, so it's a little nicer to work on the trees. So I will continue pruning up the trees, and then we'll come back and have a look at them. I have completed all the major pruning work, getting rid of branches growing straight up, long branches, crossing branches. And as I said, there'll be more pruning coming as the buds turn green and I can see what's alive and what's dead and what's growing. But they're looking good, the branches. So my next step will be to clean up the lichen. So you can see I've cleaned the lichen off the trunks not too long ago, and most are fairly clean. But if I go up in the branch structure, you can see the lichen growing on the branches, and it's getting quite thick. Too thick. So I need to do a detailed scrub down of all the trees, getting the lichen off. This tree, you can see there's some really loose plates of bark that may need to come off. Yeah, so there's a lot of cleanup work on these trees. So I think that'll probably take me the rest of the day. There's a lot of branches to clean up.
I've got my brushes, my toothbrush, and these little tiny nylon brushes that you can kind of clean in between the branches. They're very small and delicate, and it gets all the crevices clean of lichen. So I'll work away the rest of today, and we'll come back for part 3 for the final kind of look at the forest. And I'll probably plan where I'm going to position the new trees, the new larch trees in the forest, getting ready for the exciting spring repot, which I think will happen in maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks from now. I will see you in part 3 coming up.